We were chatting to Mary. She had a meeting at 11, remember. She has been through the mill for 20 years. And she's 5'7". She's 6.5 stone. She's looking to get up to a size 8. But Pennies apparently have loads of jeans from size 4 upwards for that lady. And it wasn't necessarily the style of the jeans, though. It was she wants age-appropriate clothing or appropriate, comfortable clothing she feels comfortable in. Like, there are plenty of clothes in her size, but teenagers and others are wearing them, and she wanted something that maybe was a bit more age-appropriate for her. Okay, we're joined on the programme now by Professor Kevin Curran, who's Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Greg.
You're hearing, I presume, these concerns that the 5G rollout is happening, that there's not enough research has been done, and people are concerned. That's what we're hearing.
There is, and there's been a worry about radio frequencies, mobile phones, for some time, because mobile phones emit radiation of varying power on what we call the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, there's ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. And then the waves emitted from radios, mobiles, and cell towers are all referred to as non-ionizing radiation. So these waves do not carry enough energy to strip the electrons from the atoms and molecules in our body. So ionizing radiation, on the other hand, is something that can damage our DNA. So X-rays are limited to a person, how many they get. And, of course, that there's limits to, the exposure a person should be available to. But, of course, the 5G coming out now, it's effective over short distances. So new antennas are required because the thing about 5G, it's very powerful. It's like broadband on the go. But you have more of the 5G towers because they can only send this high-speed information over shorter distances. But there's the overall exposure expected to remain low and well within the guidelines from the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection.
Well, if that is the case, why are we seeing cities like Brussels, the heart of the EU, saying we aren't doing 5G, it's too dangerous to our citizens?
No, they will. All we can say is the global research to date on the cancer incidence in humans suggests no avalanche of head or neck tumours or these tumours. So it's reasonable to assume that if there was a big risk, we would have seen it by now. And there's been a lot of independent studies. But again, you can not question some of the studies, but it's very hard to actually do what we call the gold standard, which is a randomized controlled trial, because we'd have to, over a long period, have a segment of the population not use mobile phones, and then the other segment use mobile phones, and then we would be able to examine the data. So again, it's just, it's impossible on a large scale. So all we can do is rely on observational data.
And is it the case? Sorry, go ahead. Observational data shows what? Sorry, Kevin.
They tend to be weaker and less clear-cut than experimental studies like random controlled trials. But to date, the best independently conducted human studies have concluded that mobile phones and also 5G is not associated with an increased risk of cancer.
People concerned that we're cutting down trees to facilitate the dispersion of the 5G signal. Is that the case? Is this why we're seeing trees getting cut down left, right and centre?
I hadn't heard that. No, it is possible. That's really optimizing because a lot of the 5G signal, it depends on there's different frequencies being used for 5G as well. So it varies from country and even within cell phone operators again. So some is, higher frequencies than others, and some of it can penetrate walls less well than the others. So again, line of sight trees would affect the signal. But I'm surprised that they're actually doing that because that actually doesn't make sense. It's too... Are we sure that they're cutting down trees for 5G?
No, we're trying to find it out, but there are trees. It is a fact across the UK and in parts of Ireland. We are seeing we're seeing trees and hedgerows netted up to prevent birds nesting, and we are seeing the trees being cut down. Now, I have nothing evidential that I could produce to say this is the reason why, but in the absence or in the vacuum of a lack of information and the absence of an explanation, I think people are justified in saying, "Is this why?" Because you yourself, Professor, and you're not you're not paid to say 5G is good, but
exactly.
But you would see that trees and hedgerows could be a blocker to the spread of 5G. I don't expect to see it everywhere. It's like, maybe Letterkenny, Buncrana, but I don't think anyone in many towns and villages around Ireland are going to see 5G anytime soon.
No, not for a while, because we're still waiting. There's only a handful of 5G handsets out there. And again, because you have to have a greater deployment of cell towers or these, and also what will happen is, actually, what I believe will happen in the future, a lot of our routers, our home routers, will become literally mini 5G towers, and that we are actually sharing part of our broadband with people, people connecting and going by the house, whatever else, will be using 5G off our routers again. Of course, you have to opt into that, but of course, everyone wins. It's a little bit like BT in the UK, where you have open access to BT networks anywhere or other people's BT if you share your own broadband, a part of your spectrum on your own broadband router. But again, you could also say that cutting on trees also improves 4G, what we have at the moment, because anything which blocks a line of sight affects it. So, of course, then we should tear away the walls of our house, which are one of the biggest barriers to letting 4G and 5G signals in. But I would really question that thing about cutting down trees. I really can't see that.
As I say, it's something we're looking into and we don't know yet. But Professor, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Greg.
That's Professor Kevin Curran there, and his views on 5G and its rollout and its implications. That's one view. We heard from our other guest a little earlier on, Rosina, and her views. Always try and keep it as balanced as possible. We'll be discussing that more.